Good evening. Today I will be discussing my integrated lesson plan that I wrote for this assignment. I chose the content-based instruction method, and I chose option B, which is roommate complaints. To begin, it is a high to intermediate proficiency level in an ESL classroom. The time is about 60 minutes. Actually, it might be a little longer than that. Hope that is okay. And like I said, this is a content-based instruction designed for high and intermediate ESL courses. And this is going to specialize in developing the necessary skill these speakers need in order to deal with complaints from hypothetical roommates. Let's call it hypothetical there. Students will be able to use the skills learned in the lesson in a real-life context. They will learn how to de-escalate situations, and this class will emphasize in the use of the target language. So that's the one thing I really liked about the content-based instruction, that it's supposed to be solely done in the target language. So it allows the students to really have a practice and engage their skills in said language. So the materials for this lesson, I went too far. The materials for this lesson would be whiteboard, tablets if possible, iPads, etc. One volunteer or more, and a projector, and a YouTube clip that I arranged here. So the objectives that I have for this particular class, students will be able to conduct research regarding complaints and how to handle them appropriately. Students will be able to critically think and process information they receive in a group conversation. Student will be able to generate meaningful questions based on the information they receive. Students will be able to use softening language. Students will be able to use imperatives effectively. And students will learn vocabulary needed for making suggestions. And last one is students will feel more comfortable using the target language, which is my hope for this. I begin the lesson by talking to the students about any uncomfortable situations they might have had when somebody was complaining to them about something or about them, and how they handled the issue and how they wish they had actually handled it. And this kind of plays into my warm-up over here, because I have the students think of all the different types of complaints people can make, and then they share these scenarios, and then we're going to write them down on the board. So I want the students to think of these scenarios in their actual native language, so they can know the concept that they're already dealing with. So they know about complaints. They know how to handle complaints perhaps in their native language. What they don't know is how to say it in the target language, which in this case is English. So I think the introduction and the warm-up tie pretty well in there. So once the students have given me their situations and we've written down, I will show the students a YouTube clip of how one of those situations might play out in the English language, where it's basically like a mock-up scenario of roommates having complaints and arguments. And then I will instruct the students that for the remainder of the class, they will only use the target language. So my first activity is something that I kind of read from one of the sources on content-based instruction. So it indicated that it's important to use important to have the students do the research when using this instruction, because they interact with the material that way, and you're not forcing them into reading something that they might not find interesting. So I have the students read a little bit more about the ways that people should use, what kind of vocabulary people should use in an argument, such as a hypothetical roommate saying, "Pick up your clothes now," to their roommate that hasn't picked up their clothes after being requested to do so several times. So students will research by using the tablets the different ways that people can communicate angrily when they're making a request, and the way that one should respond to de-escalate the situation. In other words, softening language. So I think this section over here adds to the communicative part of the lesson, because the students will first hear the example that I'm providing. They'll pick up your clothes now, and they will be able to critically think the connotations that might have in a situation where the roommates are discussing about this issue. And then once the students research different examples, they can discuss among themselves which ones they consider to be rude and which ones they consider to be more of a soft approach, if you want to say that, and also what each of the students consider to be softening language. Since different cultures might have different varieties of softness. At least I've been told that some Hispanics can't be as nice as others. That's for another day. Students should take 10 to 15 minutes conducting their research, and while at the same time discussing their findings amongst their group. Okay, and for my activity number 2, we'll introduce imperatives to the class by using a positive example with the volunteer student. Some of the ones I read about, please stand up or don't text in class. Then I will introduce suggestion making to the class by using another positive example. How about you put your phone away, and why don't you help clean the restroom? Then I will proceed to explain to students how different these concepts are, and the connotations that are behind them. Obviously, please stand up and don't text in your class is more of a direct rule, while suggestion is still implying for somebody to do something that you're asking them to do, but in a way softer manner. Basically, a little softening language in there. I think this adds to the communicativeness of the lesson, because the students can observe different examples of how people actually communicate in the real world, what they will encounter there, the different ways people will ask them to do things, be that in the job place, at a supermarket, at a bank. Can you pick up a piece of floor? Can you pick up a piece of paper for me? Can you please step over the line, etc. There's many different things that they will be requested to do out there. So I think this actually gives them a pretty good opportunity to look at those things. And then my last activity will be an overall interpretation of what the students have learned during the class. So I want the students to engage in one of the little mock-up roommate complaint or argument, and to use the vocabulary and the concepts that they have researched about during this lesson. Once they have designed a dialogue and set each of their roles for the mock-up, each group will have 3 to 4 minutes to present it, and I want them to act as naturally as they can, so they can display the emotions and the language that they would regularly use when in an argument, but also remember to use the imperatives and suggestion makings as it becomes appropriate, and try to gauge which situation needs which. And then finally, for my wrap up, have the student provide me their feedback on today's lesson style and whether they like it for future classes. So I felt this was important to mention here. One of the things I did read about content-based instruction is that sometimes it can make the students feel as if they didn't learn anything, because it doesn't have direct, very specific grammar-based targets, more so as in just something that the students actually want to learn about. So I just wanted to have that in there, just so students can really tell me if this is something that they would like. I'm curious about, really. And I think overall, my last activity is probably the most communicative part of the lesson because they actually get to prepare for one of these encounters that they might have in the real world. And yeah, that would be it for all my lesson plan. Thank you very much. Have a good night.